Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So I don't know if you guys saw, but Tucker Carlson recently went on Piers Morgan's show and then vice versa. So Piers went on Tucker's show. And let's just say that both interviews were interesting to the extent of it's going to waste your time if you watch it. You don't really gain much perspective that's new. And to be honest with you, well, I listened to the Tucker interviewing Piers this morning, and it's just like Tucker acted like a 2-year-old little child and was very, very weird, very disagreeable, which I think is generally his nature. And Piers acted like a scared teenager. It was quite interesting to watch or just listen to Piers and how he was responding to Tucker. And Tucker was just like, I felt like he was angry the whole time. It was kind of an absurd sort of discussion. I don't know if you guys have seen it. Maybe you can let me know in the comment section what you guys thought of the conversation. They didn't really agree on or get to much of the agreement. It was just like this constant cycle of repeating the same stuff with not much substance in the actual conversation. And they would talk about Israel and, America's involvement. And then it was just not a very good hour and 30 something minute conversation. I felt like I was expecting more. And then lo and behold, there's a number of moments that I want to point out in just a moment. But one of them especially is you can't not have a Piers Morgan, Tucker Carlson interview without Piers Morgan or even Tucker bringing up the likes of Tommy Robinson. So Piers Morgan brings it up. And I don't think Piers was really expecting Carlson's response. But so anyway, Piers brings up Tommy Robinson and continues his slanderous lies about Tommy. And Tucker, once again, says it perfectly. He sits there, becomes perfectly reasonable. Probably the only moment in the entire conversation that Tucker actually became rather reasonable. He basically sat there and points out, rightly so, that leaders, they lie all the time. They constantly lie, but yet they don't go to jail. So why is Tommy Robinson going to jail for something he didn't even lie about? And it kind of stunned Piers Morgan. Have a watch.
And also, look at the case of Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson, most Americans I speak to think he's in jail as some kind of political prisoner like Nelson Mandela for having views about
Julian Assange.
Yeah, but that's not why Tommy Robinson's in jail, because he defamed a young Syrian refugee.
Defamed?
Yeah, he lied about him.
Okay.
Well, he did. But he was then, no, the guy eventually...
How many of your leaders have gone to jail for lying?
What?
How many of your leaders have gone to jail for lying? They lie constantly. Every time they speak, they lie.
Not enough. It's not enough.
Right around zero, actually.
Yeah. But that doesn't
they throw powerless people in jail for saying things they don't like.
Yeah, throw powerless people in jail for saying things that you don't like or you don't agree with. Doesn't make the person that you're throwing in jail a liar. It actually makes people think that that person that is being thrown in jail, they're more right than the politician that is going after the person that said the thing that the politician doesn't like. Okay, the politician that lies all the time gets away with everything because he or she is money hungry or power hungry, whatever it may be. They're going after the person that they deem to be an actual liar, even though they're not. It's usually the politician that is lying. And you can tell oftentimes they're the ones that, they don't know what they're talking about half the time. They yell and scream, and then their way of dealing with things is going after the people that are actually telling the truth, the independent journalists like Tommy Robinson. And Piers, okay, credit where credit is due. He goes, not enough people end up in jail for lying. Not enough of the leaders end up where they belong for lying. Prison. For myself, I think it's quite absurd what is taking place at the moment for Tommy Robinson. He shouldn't be in prison. And that's why thousands of protesters are lining the streets in the UK at the moment and chanting free Tommy Robinson. It's why Elon Musk has sent over his legal team to help combat the atrocities that have taken place in regards to Robinson being put in solitary confinement for 18 months. Solitary confinement is only reserved for the worst of the worst. So why in the world is Tommy sitting in there, rotting in there at the moment, when so many people that are actually lying and covering things up, they're going free? It makes no sense. And Tucker even pointed out Julian Assange. And Piers is always lying about this because Piers thinks that he's right. And Tucker, I think, for the most of the interview, like I said, he acted like a 2-year-old child. But in this particular instance, it's sort of like he dropped that and pointed to some very reasonable and truthful things that stunned Piers. You just see, what are you talking about? Like that to me is like a perfect gotcha moment. And so many people are actually commenting on this. Like, yeah, Tucker actually got it right this time around. There's other things, other moments that Tucker didn't necessarily get right. Neither did Piers. It was, again, like I said, you don't really get much from the over almost hour and 35-minute conversation. I was listening to it this morning, and all it did was just make me angry and upset. So if it's going to accomplish anything, it's going to make you angry and upset at how these two supposed intelligent people can be so dumb and just go after each other and not have like a very good conversation or dialogue. Now, I know people that follow me, you love Tucker Carlson. I think you may be disappointed with the interview that he did with Piers. And I know many people that follow me don't necessarily like Piers Morgan. Again, like there are certain things that I agree with Piers on. I listened to his podcast with Chris Williamson not that long ago, and I happened to really like that dialogue. It wasn't as if Piers was constantly interrupting and acting like a scared child. It was like he actually felt confident in that interview. And whereas this one, it was almost Piers was intimidated by Tucker. Now, here's another part of the interview that I want to point out that lots of people are actually getting their knickers in a knot over. Jeremy Boring, the supposed godfather of the Daily Wire, which is an interesting name if you ask me, the godfather of the Daily Wire, or the God King, I think it is, not the godfather, the God King, they called him. So he was pointing out something to do with, like, whenever you talk about wars, whether it's Ukraine, Russia, or it's Israel versus Hamas, that sort of stuff is going to land you in hot water, right? It's landed me in hot water a number of times when I've spoken about and given my 2 cents worth. And Tucker gives his 2 cents worth in response to Israel's bombardment, I guess you could say, of the Palestinian people, children, and not just that, but even the Christians in Palestine, apparently. Apparently there are Christians in Palestine. I had no idea about that. I don't know if you guys knew that, but that was news to me. And Tucker was very upset at what Israel has done to the Christians, because Tucker claims to be a Christian himself. But Jeremy goes, anyone still blind to what Tucker is doing is willfully so. He isn't hiding it. When a man has worse thing to say about Winston Churchill and Ben Shapiro than Vladimir Putin and Nazi apologists, he's making his position pretty clear. If you don't know what he's talking about, Tucker was talking to Piers and saying, so is Zelensky a dictator? And then Piers would throw back on Tucker and say, oh, is Putin a dictator? And they just go back and forth as to what constitutes a dictator. And it seems as if Tucker doesn't like Winston Churchill. He also doesn't like Ben Shapiro. And he seems to like Vladimir Putin and doesn't necessarily like Israel all that much for certain things they've done. So have a watch of this.
If you're intentionally killing civilians, you probably shouldn't beat your chest and brag about it. You know, maybe you could make the
I agree
case,
with that.
Maybe you make the case that we had to do it or whatever, but you should.
I agree.
You should weep, and that's evil, and you should just say it's evil. And I know it's like really threatening to.
Is it evil, though?
Ben Shapiro to say that or whatever, but
is it evil
to kill civilians on purpose? Yeah, it is. I think it is.
Really?
Kids and children. Well, how is it not actually?
In a war?
we can call it whatever you want. How is it right to kill women and children?
I didn't say, well, because I think there is a moral right behind you. If you are literally
to kill women and children,
if there's a world war that threatens the entire, if it threatens the entire world, yes.
Some people killed your kids, like your 8-year-old. Like,
well, obviously,
how
it's your
is
own
that
children.
morally justifiable?
Well, because actually you have to. Well, by your criteria,
it's disgusting.
Okay, it's nothing's so no war is morally justified.
I mean, I think it's pretty hard to justify. I mean, yeah, I'm
Any
sure,
war.
You know, a pure defensive action, sure. But all I'm saying, look, it's all ugly. It's all hard to stomach. I've actually seen some of it up close. It's super ugly.
You can say that. You can say you hate it.
May I finish?
The fact you quibble with it being morally justified.
To intentionally kill non-combatants, women and children, I think we can say that's wrong. In fact, I thought that was the thing we were fighting against.
This whole argument, whether or not it is morally justifiable to kill innocent children, men, women, that sort of thing in a war, right? Like, especially if the side is trying to ruin democracy or trying to take over and you've got like a dictatorship and things like that. Is it morally justifiable for you as the allies, I guess you could call them the good guys, to bomb or wipe out the bad people, even though the women, children, so to speak, don't really have too much of a say? Is there a moral argument to that? Can you sort of wipe your hands clean? And whether or not you think that it is morally justifiable or not, that's your own sort of prerogative. I think that violence and death of any kind is horrific and horrendous. And if you can avoid it, you should definitely avoid it. If it's unavoidable, then you should go with the option of, well, you can't really avoid it, but I'm going to try my utmost best to minimize the casualties here, especially if the opposing side, the ones to take over your side, right, they're the ones that are putting the innocent civilians at the forefront, which is exactly what Hamas is doing. So there is somewhat of a moral justifiable argument, and I agree with Piers on that front. And I also agree with Tucker in saying that killing innocent men, women, and children is not good, or it's horrible. But just because it's horrible doesn't mean that it should not happen for the sake of your side winning and peace and prosperity. Like if you've got like World War II, for example, you have someone like Hitler taking control and wanting to wipe out everybody. Yeah, dropping a bomb on Hitler, I understand there's going to be severe casualties in that circumstance, but it would pretty much stop the amount of killing that Hitler would have done if he had have gained control. So there is a moral argument to be had there. And it, in all honesty, is just it's all horrendous. That's what it is. There's no easy way around it. It's bad regardless. Okay. So anyway, that's another part of the conversation. You don't really learn anything new. Let's just leave it at that, shall we? But anyway, that's enough from me. You guys take care. You be blessed, and I'll see you all in the next video.